the updated paperback edition of Entitled, a prominent biography exploring the lives of Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, has introduced a significant array of new details, drawing on an unprecedented willingness from individuals to contribute the narrative. Following the Duke of York's public downfall and the escalating disclosures surrounding Jeffrey Epstein, many who had previously maintained silence felt compelled to share their experiences. The author initially engaged with approximately 3,000 potential sources, with about a tenth providing initial accounts. This initial outreach subsequently expanded, include around 150 individuals who formally went on the record, alongside a further 150 who initially spoke off the record, many of whom later agreed be named. The author also received an extraordinary volume of unsolicited testimony, amounting roughly 100,000 words, from individuals who became aware of the book project and wished to contribute their insights. This surge in candid accounts came from a diverse group, including protection officers, security personnel from royal visits, former members of household staff, and a former equerry, all of whom approached the author with surprising openness. This trend of increased candor intensified as the revelations concerning Jeffrey Epstein continued to surface, which the author identifies as a pivotal moment. The Epstein files, in the author's view, served as a crucial catalyst, prompting many fully grasp the gravity of the situation. Numerous individuals who had previously considered their uncomfortable encounters with Prince Andrew be isolated incidents began recognize a discernible pattern after comparing notes and sharing their stories. Within the detailed accounts, a submariner described an episode from Prince Andrew's naval service, characterizing him as exceptionally bossy. In the inherently egalitarian environment of a submarine, this perceived overbearing conduct led a unique form of retaliation. Reportedly, when Andrew briefly left the lavery, fellow submariners deposited feces inside his kid leather flying gloves, which were then left foamed on, a clear act of defiance. Another incident involved a protection officer on the palace grounds, illustrating Andrew's dismissive attitude towards his security detail, as he often withheld the names of his viziers. One evening, while walking at dusk, Andrew was mistaken for an intruder, triggering an alert that led officers apprehending him. It took a moment for the security personnel realize his identity, and during the confusion, some punches were reportedly thrown. The author noted that similar anecdotes of misidentification circulated during his own school days near the royal family in Scotland, where Andrew was not always immediately recognized in the midst of rugby scrums. The biography documents persistent accounts of Prince Andrew's bullying behavior, particularly Ward's staff. At Sunninghill Park, he reportedly engaged in deliberate acts of humiliation, forcing employees bow or curtsy progressively lower until he deemed they had sufficiently debased themselves. He is said have reveled in the power he could wield over individuals who were not in a position to challenge him. A source named John Longmuir, who worked in airport security, recounted an incident on a British Airways flight where Andrew greeted a stewardess, then spun her around, stand behind her, simulating a golf swing while holding her tightly. Similar strides of unwanted physical contact have emerged from a Yorkshire landowner's daughter's 18th birthday party and from Knowsley, a stately home owned by a friend, where he allegedly groped a woman in Sarah Ferguson's presence. At a formal dinner, he reportedly directed lewd remarks at a pregnant woman who was married a prominent Scottish businessman, subsequently lingering outside her bedroom, awaiting her return. The author interprets these incidents as part of a pattern of sexually predatory behavior designed to make individuals uncomfortable while knowing they were constrained from responding easily. Further unsettling information came from a former pupil of Gordonson who had been investigating historic abuse within Scottish schools. This individual reported seeing Prince Andrew in a 13-year-old girl's dormitory during the early 1990s, at approximately 8 in the evening, engaged in conversation with the girls alone. While nothing overtly untoward was witnessed, and it is presumed he had permission to be there, the image of a man in his 30s in such a setting contributes a broader sense of unease. This particular account gains additional disquieting context when considered alongside his subsequent appearance on an FBI shortlist and other information that later emerged within the Epstein files. A source formerly employed by businessman Peter de Savary also recalled that during Andrew's paid engagement opener golf course in the Bahamas, a list of requests openly included a demand for a 16-year-old blonde. Another incident revealing Andrew's temper occurred during a shooting weekend at Sandringham, where he reportedly kicked his own dog in the head after the animal had taken a sausage roll. A very close friend of the royal family witnessed this act, expressing shock and reprimanding Andrew, telling him leave. Notably, no one else intervened at the time. Later that evening, Prince Philip approached the friend, offering thanks and stating that the rebuke had been necessary. The author raises a pertinent question regarding Prince Philip's decision not to confront his son directly, especially given that Andrew was an adult in his 20s at the time of the incident. Much of the material pertaining Sarah Ferguson was initially excluded from the first edition of the biography, as publishers believed readers' primary interest lay with Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein. However, for the updated edition, more individuals came forward to share their experiences. One woman, who resided near Sarah's former home in Verbier, wished to attend a charity event established by Ferguson. The situation reportedly unfolded such that Sarah manipulated circumstances, resulting in the woman having personally cover the cost of a return trip from Boston, as the charity would not reimburse her. A long-serving personal assistant provided an exceptionally detailed portrayal of a chaotic working environment. Staff members frequently experienced delayed or unpaid salaries and were often expected to use their personal credit cards to purchase items for Ferguson. On one occasion, Sarah reportedly utilized Princess Beatrice's credit card. The assistant noted that many employees did not remain employed beyond lunchtime, and staff members were often found distressed and crying in lavatories. Meetings and social engagements frequently appeared to have ulterior motives, with Sarah consistently seeking individuals from whom she could extract financial assistance. She reportedly compensated a psychic with cigarettes and exhibited compulsive buying habits, acquiring multiple identical items, such as 8 jumpers. Travel arrangements were subject to last-minute alterations. For instance, she might abruptly decide fly past beach while already en route to the departure gate for a different destination. The personal assistant further disclosed that Sarah Ferguson cultivated sexual relationships with some of her benefactors, implying that many who provided financial support were aware that such a relationship might be an implicit component of the arrangement. Among the most striking revelations is the claim that from approximately 2004, Sarah Ferguson engaged in an on-off sexual relationship with the rapper P. Diddy, who is currently imprisoned for his own sexual offences. 2 sources who worked for P. Diddy confirmed the relationship, recounting wild parties which Sarah reportedly brought her daughter, Princess Eugenie. P. Diddy, described as being obsessed with the royal family, allegedly bragged about his sexual involvement with Sarah, and once remarked that he eagerly anticipated her daughters reaching adulthood. The author observes that Sarah appeared to show no apprehension about associating with individuals identified as sexual predators. This lack of concern is highlighted by her reported willingness to introduce her goddaughters and her own daughters Epstein immediately following his release from prison, and her movement within the same social circles as P. Diddy. Sarah Ferguson has long been characterized as being drawn what are termed bad boys and a life lived on the edge. A source suggested she was incapable of settling down with a conventionally good man, believing such a relationship would bore her profoundly. Her self-esteem was reportedly diminished by poor treatment from Paddy McNally, leading her gravitate towards individuals who would treat her unfavorably, as she felt she deserved such treatment. Both she and Andrew reportedly enjoyed a somewhat seedy, celebrity-driven world, which included interactions with figures such as Naomi Campbell, attendance at Heidi Klum's Halloween parties, and movement within circles that also encompassed Ghislaine Maxwell. Sarah's existence has been marked by a relentless pursuit of new financial resources and an enduring conviction that she could orchestrate yet another public comeback. She has publicly asserted her identity as a fighter and expressed intentions to author a book and give interviews, adhering a familiar strategy of portraying herself as a victim and invoking the late Queen's affection. The author speculates that she might find success in regions such as China and the Middle East, where her past controversies may attract less scrutiny. She has previously served as a brand ambassador and some Chinese investors reportedly remained unaware of how their funds were being mismanaged. Prince Andrew's trajectory is described as possessing an almost Shakespearean quality, driven by his own hubris. He repeatedly failed to seize opportunities, offer apologies, or demonstrate remorse, instead opting for the disastrous Newsnight interview. In this interview, he reportedly offered extensive falsehoods, even regarding matters where such deception was entirely unnecessary. That widely criticized interview is understood to have emboldened his accuser, Virginia Giuffre, and reignited the public narrative surrounding him. The author suggests that Andrew has consistently held a reputation for dishonesty, even within his own family, implying that the palace should not have been surprised by his conduct during the interview. In his current existence, Prince Andrew has become a recluse, having largely abandoned purposeful activity. He has always shown an affinity for technology, and he now reportedly spends his days engaged in video gaming, particularly Call of Duty and flight simulation programs, which evoke his unfulfilled ambition of becoming a pilot. He is described as prioritizing gaming over professional responsibilities, personal health and hygiene. Typically, he would remain in his pajamas until lunchtime, therefore. The fact that he was fully dressed and prepared when police arrived questioned him represented a notable deviation from his routine. Although he is reportedly depressed and expresses a desire to spend more time with his grandchildren, sources close to a palace official indicate a perceived absence of remorse on his part. These sources further suggest he is quite confident, believing he will ultimately not face charges. Financially, despite public assertions that he subsists on a pension and requires family support, Prince Andrew is believed to have accumulated substantial sums over the years from various business activities. He is known to have maintained accounts in China and offshore jurisdictions. His business dealings have included ventures in the Middle East with figures such as Johann Eliasch, David Rowlands and the late Epstein, as well as collaborations with David Stern. For an extended period, he reportedly lived off income derived from Pitchford Hall. The author speculates that Andrew will eventually relocate abroad, quietly departing the country, a location where he can reside on private land, shielded from public scrutiny. A recent security alert at his Norfolk residence has raised questions about the provision of his protection. The author contends that while Andrew requires security, its funding should be privately sourced to avert public criticism and potential outrage. The updated book also scrutinizes the activities of Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. A public relations strategy has sought to portray them as innocent collateral damage resulting from their parents' actions. However, the author's research suggests they are actively involved in an operation built upon their parents' extensive connections. They reportedly accompanied trade trips that were funded by the taxpayer, cultivating valuable contacts, and have spent considerable time in the Middle East. During these engagements, they are said to have leveraged their royal titles to promote Saudi banks, and have received expensive gifts, including one from a Turkish billionaire. Their professional roles handling client relations for an art gallery and an artificial intelligence firm are presented as being entirely dependent on these established networks. The book highlights unexplained financial transactions and trips that neither the princesses nor their employers could ostensibly afford, suggesting potential funding from ruling families. The author notes that Prince William reportedly requested that the sisters audit their business activities, preempt any embarrassing disclosures, but they did not comply. The author argues that the only appropriate course of action for them would be relinquish their titles and withdraw from public life. Furthermore, he asserts that broader transparency and parliamentary accountability are essential measures for the restoration of public trust in the monarchy. In this wider context, the author underscores the potential significance of the Hillsborough Law, which is designed to encourage public officials come forward if they suspect wrongdoing has been suppressed. Protection officers, in particular, should have reported any criminal activity they witnessed. The palace, according to the author, needs issue a clear statement confirming that all relevant documentation has been handed over law enforcement agencies and that the situation is not being treated as business as usual. The public is increasingly demanding answers from the king and other members of the royal family regarding what they knew and when they knew it. The author points out that no action was taken in 2010 when Sarah Ferguson was filmed attempting cell access Prince Andrew, nor when the initial version of his biography was published, nor when the Salman Turk High Court trial revealed an unexplained 1.3 million in New York's accounts. He firmly believes that a formal statement from the palace is now indispensable. Further intriguing details include Prince Andrew's dismissive attitude towards Arab royalty, despite actively courting them for business purposes. Wendy Erskine, married and RAF officer, recounted an instance where Andrew presented a large silver model of an Arab dhow, disdainfully calling it awful and suggesting it be used for target practice. He reportedly remarked that the late Queen felt obliged to maintain close ties with these figures due to their substantial purchases of British arms. The author remains convinced that this unfolding narrative still has a considerable distance run. It is anticipated that more documents may be released by American authorities, and further victims could yet emerge. Additionally, individuals continue to contact him with new information. Notably, he has received reports suggesting that Sophie, then Countess of Wessex, had dinner with Epstein as far back as 1994, raising broader questions about how many other members of the royal family might have been targeted or associated. For the foreseeable future, as the author concludes, this remains a situation that demands close observation.